What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Fluff Hammer. Today I'm going to be going through the Imperial Fist's base colour. So this is going to be the yellow with all the shading and how I achieve it. I'm going to be doing a number of Imperial Fist videos, and basically I thought to simplify the other videos I would show you how we did the Imperial Fist yellow, and then all the other videos can kind of link off that with the yellow already done. So anyway, let's get into it. We're starting off with our primed miniature. So basically I've primed it with Mephiston Red and then sprayed from above with Corax White. When you're doing this not with the airbrush, it is actually better to, rather than directly spraying with Corax White from above, it can then kind of lead to just having too stark a difference between the red and the white. So what I try and do is follow it around at about a 45-degree angle and just feather it in. So as you can see, we've still got some nice areas of red, but most of them have speckles of white on, so it's just making for a much smoother transition. The first colour we're going to be using on this is going to be the Imperial Fist's yellow contrast paint. And as you can see in the video description, you do not need an airbrush for this. I'm just purely using mine because it's sitting right next to me and it is a lot quicker. And it is a little bit smoother, but to be honest, we're doing so much weathering on this yellow. If the Imperial Fist yellow isn't like mega smooth, it doesn't matter a huge amount, because by the time we've done the oil washes and the stippling and the weathering, it will definitely just even itself out. So that's a smooth all over coat of Imperial Fist yellow, and as you can see, that red and then white base coat has given us a really nice shade to start with, so we've got really good base down. After that, we're going to let it dry for a good half an hour, and then we're going to hit it with some gloss varnish. Again, if you don't have an airbrush, you can paint this on with a brush. Alternatively, there is hundreds of spray cans available for gloss varnish. The reason we're going to do the gloss varnish is because we're going to be going into oil paints and oil washes, and the gloss varnish will really help kind of break up the surface tension so that the oil wash will go into the recesses easier, and it will also allow us to clean up the oil wash, or also clean up any kind of weathering. If we go a bit too heavy, you can just wipe it straight off, so the gloss varnish is really helpful. I'm going to go around with the airbrush really gently here and do probably 2 light coats just to make sure I'm not getting the varnish too thick. Gloss varnish is a difficult one sometimes. You just need to be careful you don't overload the model. Anyway, next up we're going to be going into Winsor & Newton Burnt Umber. This doesn't have to be that particular brand. There's quite a few oil paint brands about. This is just a brand that I get on really well with. I'm going to just be getting a small amount out of the tube, and then I'm going to be using some sponge. You can use any type of sponge, even the washing up sponges. You just rip the green bit off the top and then just pull a bit of sponge out. Basically, we're going to be going around here and just kind of tapping the sponge lightly on the raised edges. So this is going to be the areas where there's kind of more battle damage. And as you can see, the gloss varnish there actually allows me to wipe that where I'd gone in a bit too heavy, which is a massive benefit of using the oil as opposed to doing this with acrylic paint. Also, the reason I like doing this with oil is it stays wet for absolutely ages. I've found with the sponge, if you do this with acrylic paints, the paint dries in the sponge and the paint dries on the palette. So when you're working your way around this model, and it could take 15 minutes, you might have to get kind of 6 or 7 loads of acrylic paint out, and it can be really wasteful. The oil paint, because of the viscosity of it as well, it's actually really thick like toothpaste, which actually helps with this kind of foam stippling, because it tends to stick a bit more to the model, whereas if you've got a waterier paint, it doesn't give you as defined chips. So actually really like the oil paints for this, and I would recommend it. It's not particularly difficult, just gloss varnish first, then oil paint, and then you just have to matte varnish afterwards to seal it. The only downtime to it is the drying time, which is quite a bit longer than acrylic paints. So you just got to do this. I basically done this in the morning before work, and then after work I done the oil wash, so I left them probably about 6 hours in between, and then let the oil wash dry overnight before I done the matte varnish. Speaking of oil washes, here's one I made earlier. Basically, for the Imperial Fists, I thought instead of kind of keep mixing up oil washes every time I'm painting them, I thought it would be easier to just pre-make a bottle of it. So I whipped one up. It's very simple. You just mix oil paint with a thinner. I've used Sansador by Winsor & Newton. And yeah, I just mixed it up until it was the right kind of shade and consistency for me. Another good thing about the oils here, you can actually play around with them to make sure that they are the kind of depth, the shade, everything that you want. And you can adjust them yourself. They're also very, very cheap to make. The whole tube of thinners is only about £10 or £11 if you get the Sansador. You could probably get a cheap mineral spirits for a lot less than that. And the oil paints are very cheap as well. They're only a couple of quid a tube. And you can make tons and tons and tons of wash with that. So that is another bonus point to the oils. As you can see here, they flow really, really nicely around, and I'm going to be going around all the kind of deep recesses. They're really, really good for panel lining, but also as well, anywhere that I'm planning to do like the banners and stuff like that, I'm going around all of them because it will give me a really nice defined shade in between the two colours. So where the banner, which is going to be maybe like a beige colour, isn't too different from the yellow, sometimes it can look really off if there isn't a hard line between them. So rather than having to black the banner areas out first before I paint the beige over top, I'm just going around them with this oil wash, which is just going to create a nice little bit of shade around it and a nice little bit of definition. Other than that, the oil washes are really simple. You just need to remember to give them a long enough time to dry. Once they've dried overnight, I'm just going to hit them with the AK Ultra Matte varnish. It's one of my favourites. Although recently I have tried the Ultra Matte varnish from Green Stuff World. I've only used it once, but it was absolutely awesome. So that might be my new go-to. I have a lot of problems with the AK one with clumping and stuff. It's you can see it in the airbrush a little bit there. I'll put an overlay in, but it does, tend to get a lot of like little clumps forming in it. I don't know if that's a problem anyone else has, but I have just ordered some of the new AK matte, so I'll give that a go as well and report back. Once that completely dried, I'm going to be going in with a flat yellow from Vallejo, and again with the foam here, I'm just going to stipple it all the way around. As you can see, the stipple effect isn't as good through the acrylic paints as what it is with the oils, but this colour is absolutely spot on to what I wanted. And when I started it, the Imperial Fists, this was the colour that I found worked best to bring a nice little bit of kind of brightness back to the model. It's not too golden yellow, it is quite nice and flat. So I'm just going to go around stippling some highlights. And also I stipple over some of the areas where I've done the chipping as well, so it gives it a kind of nice chipped effect, because sometimes it's nice to highlight the chips. And once that's all done, that is the armour all wrapped up. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said, this will be the start of an Imperial Fists series, so I can now go on to other units like Phalanx Warders and stuff, and I won't have to waste kind of the first 10 minutes of every video explaining the yellow. I can just link back to this one first, and then we can get into the specific details unit by unit. I hope you liked the video. Please give it a like. Please comment if there's anything else you'd like to see. It would really help me out if you'd subscribe, and also consider making your next hobby purchase through my Element Games link that I'll put in the description below. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.